This show is supported by Twin Cities Eye Consultants. If you're watching the match, checking stats, and following social media all at once, your eyes are working overtime. Give them support at tcecmn.com. Welcome in, Loons fans, to another Matchday preview presented by Twin Cities Eye Consultants. Jonathan Harrison here, joined once again by Manny Lagos. Manny, how are you doing today? Plenty of World Cup action to discuss and review. We've got the U.S. we've got their win to discuss, and plenty of other games as well. But how are you doing on this fine summer morning?
I am doing well, and I always like throwing curveballs. We have an awesome guest today that will be so much fun, just because there's so much soccer talk. And then also, Jonathan, a fun little thing before we get into the World Cup talk about Minnesota United. They come back in to train today for tomorrow. So they start training tomorrow.
Wow.
For their kind of mini preseason, I guess you'd call it, before the July 22nd, the opening game. So
and just like that, the summer break is already over for the guys.
It was, the staff is up there working hard to get ready for the guys coming in today. And again, like I said, they kick off tomorrow to get back at it. But super excited for the show today, for our guest, talking soccer. What a start to the World Cup. So it couldn't be a better timing to have this guest on.
Absolutely. And welcome into the show, Kyndra de St. Aubin, MLS, Apple TV commentator. Kyndra, how are you doing? How are you enjoying all of this soccer we've been able to watch over the past week or so?
Well, I feel like this, first of all, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And I feel like this is the best time. Every time there's a World Cup, it's like you can just plop down. And even if you're not just sitting and watching it, it's on in the background. And then you go to your festivities, your activities, you run into other people, and then they're all talking about what they saw that day, or you have text chains and group chats, and it's like, oh my gosh, did you see this? I can't get enough of this. Like, did you see that energy, those fans? I mean, the Scotland fans, like we can go like down the line of sort of how it's been this summer already. And we're only day 6 in. Now this is day 7. 104 games total in this World Cup. So it's been a great start. It's been fun.
Let's go down that line. Let me hear your guys' favorite fan bases so far.
Kyndra?
Ooh. Well, first of all, there's been a lot of footage of the Scotland fans. And for anybody to drink the bars dry in Boston more than they've sold on like St. Patrick's Day weekend for 4 days. Like that is just telling you a lot. So like watching all the videos, the bagpipes, the people going into Fenway, embracing the culture. But honestly, we were talking about this before, Netherlands. I love the vibe. I love the chant. I love the orange. I love the bus.
You like the Hans Winston interaction?
Yes. But honestly, how can you knock any fan base? Because it's been phenomenal, the support for the tiniest countries, the most well-known, biggest countries. And then the biggest part for me is probably how they all come together. All these backgrounds celebrating, even the orange, I think it was maybe a video from Houston, which is ironic with the orange. But I don't remember where I saw it, wherever they were and it was like, you have Brazil jerseys and you have, Netherlands jerseys and people that weren't even playing that day, but they're all together like celebrating. And that's what I always love about the World Cups. It's just
awesome.
People don't understand it if you've never experienced it, not in person, but even just watching it. It's like, you got to embrace that.
I think that there was a cool story about the little town in Kansas City with the Algerian fans. They've kind of embraced each other. But I think you're right. I think the Scottish fans eke ahead of everything. I think a couple of cool things are Scott McLeod, who works in our youth development and camps and clinics and coaching education stuff. He's Scottish. He went out there. He actually ended up staying at the hotel with the team, which was great for his kid. But he was totally immersed. And he said it was amazing. The game, he was very funny. They were shite on the field, but awesome in the stands. They were at Fenway Park the next night. He was there. He said it was just like, the DJ knew they were there, so between every inning, they would play and sing. And my last thing, I was with one buddy last night. We were like, it's like Boston is in Step Brothers. They like the Boston public and Scottish public became best friends, and they didn't even know they should be best friends. Like it's an awesome marriage of two cultures for sure.
The videos from that Red Sox game with a bunch of Scottish fans at it, all singing songs like after
Yes.
the play is resumed is one of the cooler videos, and the atmosphere that they brought to a baseball game was really fun to see. Yeah, I think I'm with you. The Scottish fans have kind of taken over. Algeria, as you said, Manny, in was that Lawrence, Kansas, has been awesome to see the combination there. I love what this tournament has brought for the Cape Verde fans and being able to eke out that result and what that meant for them. I just like seeing, as you guys have said, like the tiny nations that don't often get here, and they take on a powerhouse and they go toe to toe and come out with a draw. And even though there was no goal scored, even though it was still a draw, it still means the entire world to them, and to see their emotions, that's fun for me. There's so much going on in this tournament that there's a lot to cover. So we'll try and cover it all over the next hour. There's not really a whole lot of format to this show. We'll just kind of riff and talk about the World Cup. But just want to start off with, since we are Minnesota United podcast, start off with some MLS fun facts about this tournament. League record 45 players from the league in this tournament. Canada has the most with 9, USA with 8. 22 clubs have players at the tournament representing 17 different nations. And then LAFC have the most call-ups, 8 clubs with 3 at the tournament, including Minnesota United. So plenty of representation for Minnesota United and MLS at this tournament. We'll see some of that today when Panama take on Ghana today. Carlos Harvey, hopefully in that starting squad. We'll see how he goes in that tournament, how Panama goes in the tournament. But let's start off with your guys' favorite games. Kyndra, I'll start with you. Favorite games so far that you've seen at the tournament?
Well, I think it depends on how we're ranking the games. I mean,
however you want.
You just mentioned the Cape Verde Spain game, and I'm always a sucker for the smaller nations, or the nations that have little expectation from the outside world when they get to come, and the debate about the expanded tournament and having the most teams, and what does that mean? Because then you have the Curacao game against Germany, which ends up 7-1, but the first half was entertaining, and still what it means for those countries. So from that perspective, I love the stories that come out. It's the same way when I did the Women's World Cups. That was my favorite part about covering a World Cup, is telling the stories of the amazing people that get to be a part of it. But I would say most entertaining, and this isn't just biased because I'm wearing a USA jersey and a Michelle Akers hat, who's my favorite number 10, but that USA game had to be, I mean, you talk about surprising, because we've had so much expectations and hosting the World Cup, and there's been so much negativity, and how much money are we paying Pochettino? Is he going to get this? And then the stories leading into it. I'm always a sucker also for Tom Rinaldi and all of his featured pieces, but watching Pochettino watching Miracle, and how he embraced Herb Brooks and the whole like, we all know that, especially being in Minnesota. But so I would say probably my favorite game so far, if we're just purely talking emotion and soccer, had to be the United States. That was such a joy to watch the world or the country embrace them, and them to do what we know they're capable of, and kind of shed all the outside noise. And that had to be my favorite one, because there were some phenomenal performances, and the defense held up, and there's MLS players on that squad. And I'm not a huge Gio Reyna fan, but that was a ridiculous goal, and him and Berhalter on the same team. It's like a soap opera in and of itself. It's like it was fun to see. So from that standpoint, I'd have to say the US game.
Manny,
Are you going as well in this? Because
yeah, I'll pick a game. I'll let you guys go first.
All right. Well, I mean, I hands down USA. Kendra's right. It's not even close. I mean, it's, and I think we got to have a deep dive into the game itself as well. I'll give my reasons more in the deep dive than now, but hands down USA number 1 without a doubt. And it is the expression of the angst of our country going into the World Cup and how we were going to do. And we're still there, by the way. Again, we can't get too high, but it was such a great coming out party. The largest audience watching a U.S. men's national team game ever. on TV. Nothing else was going on that night. You could just feel the energy throughout the country. And then the guys just performed on the field. I mean, unbelievable. Number two would be the Japan, Netherlands, just great soccer, two great teams, just really, really an awesome game in terms of the tactics, in terms of the quality. And then my third was the chaos game of Mr. Boxo New Zealand taking on Iran. Unbelievable in that most of these games now I feel like are becoming, kind of tactical chess matches. And every once in a while, you'll get a game where like, let's throw that out the window and let's have both teams just go for it every time and be wide open. And that was that game. So those are my top three so far. But there's a lot. It's fun. I mean, there's been a lot of good games.
Outside of the US game, obviously, I was gonna go with that Iran New Zealand game because that game still kind of lives in my head of how open that game was, how back and forth that game was throughout the 90 minutes. I mean, you saw it a little bit yesterday in what was it? One of the matches for Matchday. I can't remember exactly which one, but there was some wide openness to it, but it kind of died off in the second half. Whereas Iran New Zealand, it stayed that way throughout the entire 90 minutes. That was really fun to watch, not just from the perspective of seeing our team captain on the field for New Zealand at the World Cup, but just two teams just going at it and having fun playing soccer and playing really good soccer at that. It was really fun to watch. Overall, your guys' perspective, what's been your thoughts on how this, Manny, you kind of touched on it a little bit there, overall the play at this tournament through almost a full set of round one games here? We'll finish up round one today with a handful of games, but overall your perspective and thoughts on how teams are playing at this tournament.
I mean, for first round games, I think it's been pretty darn good. The reality is you get a little nervous because a lot of teams can qualify in third place. And so ties are really valuable for some of these lesser teams. So given that that's part of the psychology and subconscious of all these teams, I think the soccer's been pretty good and pretty wide open. I still think if we're kind of going into tactics, it's pretty fascinating. Again, my brain is going to go to the U.S. game for like 90% of this podcast because it was so awesome. But I think it doesn't quite make sense because 70% of these teams now have fully shifted to back fives, which kind of worries you because you're like, ooh, I think it's going to be really defensive. And it might get more defensive as the tournament goes on, particularly with tired legs and the kind of a back five defensive model. But it's amazing how fast the game of soccer evolves and how many teams now are embracing instead of a back four or back five. And I think that has not led to actually going forward and the teams having good shape, but then just driving and throwing numbers forward. So overall, I've been really impressed with the first round game. Second round tends to be even a little bit better just because now this is do or die for a lot of teams that need either a tie or a win to stay in it. And then the third round, again, I got to be a little careful because this is what at 32 teams, my brain is like third rounds can be. But I think third rounds can actually be even better because there'll be so many teams that are still in it if they just score a couple goals and get a win, even if they had two losses. So overall, I think all three games are going to be great in the rounds. And so far, it's been unbelievable. Outstanding. I mean, what a start to the World Cup.
Kyndra?
I love that when we talk about the tactics of this, because I feel like we see that evolve in every league now. And we talk about it a lot with Minnesota United and their shape when we do their games, but in general with the fullbacks and the quality of every single player on the field and how they all have to have this unique technical ability with the back five or back three, whatever it looks like. But in general, I would just say that when I look at this World Cup and the first round of games, there is a parity about it, even though there are some of these smaller countries. And yes, we've had a couple of the blowouts, but the majority of them have been competitive quality games. And it's not even like the bunkering in. If you go back to that Cape Verde Spain game, they defended they had 25, 30% of the possession. I think Spain had 70, which they do against most teams, but they only committed one foul. Like that's insane. So this wasn't like they're bunking, but just like hacking away at people and slowing the game down and breaking up their rhythm. I mean, when we go back to this tactical shift, this chess match, this identity, nobody is afraid to play anybody. I haven't seen a game yet where somebody walks on the field and looks intimidated regardless of the matchup. And you guys tell me if I'm wrong or if you're like, oh yeah, they look like they were nervous to be there. Like I haven't seen that, and I think that's maybe a little bit of a evolution of the way the world is with soccer too, and some of the nations and these guys that are playing for these smaller countries that weren't even, weren't born there, but they have ties to it and they're playing in bigger, better leagues in other places around the world. So I don't know. I just felt like the whole quality of the play, it's been fun to see.
Yeah, I agree with you guys both that the level of play that we've seen in this opening round, I had my nervousness about expanding this tournament and bringing in teams that haven't been there before and how they would match up. But obviously, you get kind of the two edges of that. You get the Curacao Germany game where it's 7-1. It's a 7-1 blowout from Germany. First half, it wasn't as spread out as that scoreline would seem, but obviously Germany just kind of took over as that match wore on. But then you get, as we've talked about, the Spain-Cape Verde game where they go at each other, and obviously Cape Verde has to deal with a lot of not having the ball, and they stand up. That defense just plays immaculate. So you get both edges of that, where you get a team that like Cape Verde who comes out and plays exceptionally well and shows, yeah, this is right to expand this tournament. But then obviously the Curacao result kind of gives you the opposite edge of that. So the underdog.
Let's make sure we don't just all have niceness here. Spain was Spain was horrible in that game.
Yes.
Well, that was going to be my next question.
Spain was ridiculously horrible. Like, they didn't move the ball fast. They didn't have ideas going forward. There's questions about where the goals are going to come from. They always start.
I feel like that's every time at a tournament for Spain is where those goals are going to come from.
Correct. And they always start tournaments slow. But again, they won the World Cup in 2010, losing their first game. So I'm not saying they won't recover and come back. I'm just saying that, like, if we're going to start criticizing style and tactics, I am not a fan right now of Spain's death by 1,000 passes, and I'm not a fan of their lack of verticality. I know that Lamine Yamal and Nico Williams will massively help that. That's why they won the Euros. But they have some issues in the midfield that I don't know what they do well. And people love Gavi, and I'm like, what does he really do out there? Doesn't really give you goals and assists. He kind of is a bowling ball, not creative guy. So I look at Spain and be like, they can recover. But we're talking about the team that was picked to win the World Cup, and their first game looked like they had ran out of ideas against Cape Verde is not Curacao. Let's be honest. This is a pretty good African country that has really good players, particularly playing in Portugal, some really good leagues in Europe. Curacao does not. They're kind of more lower level Dutch players. So I think there's a difference between those levels. But at the end of the day, I really love it. The Cape Verde, I love that this is historically their best result ever for their country. But on the flip side, I think we got to be critical of Spain and their lack of stepping onto the biggest stage and starting the tournament as the favorite. It was just really poor, personally.
Who did they lose to? Who did they lose to in the first round or the first game in 2010?
Ooh, that's a good trivia question, John.
Because I feel like it was a better opponent than Cape Verde. So, like, when people are like, "Oh no, they'll rebound," they did this in 20, and I get it. Cape Verde isn't like. You just mentioned, yes, Moreira players on that team, even from MLS from Columbus. So I get that too. But I like, even France looked that way in the first half yesterday. They looked boring and kind of, Senegal couldn't got up to 2-0. They looked a little slow and lackadaisical. Oh, Switzerland. Yeah. But so but they bounced back in the second half, France yesterday, and showed what they could do.
Lost the first game against Saudi Arabia and won the World Cup.
Yeah.
So there is. Yeah. You don't want to get too high or too low with these games. I don't want to overjudge, like, this means Spain's going to have a bad tournament.
No, but you're more saying Spain just doesn't look good in general, regardless of who they're playing. Like, they're missing something.
Yes.
Attacking.
And they have to find it quickly, and they can, because they did it in 2010. But I would say, particularly as the favorites to win this World Cup, I think right away they've got to have some tough questions about, is Lamine Yamal ready to go? Is Nico Williams ready to go? Is that going to help them kind of recalibrate how they're going to go about getting better each game in this tournament? And I thought it was a really poor showing for Spain, given just how excited people are about them winning the World Cup.
Does anybody else let you down at this tournament so far, Kyndra? Manny obviously is let down by Spain.
I don't know if let down is the word.
It's still very early in this tournament.
One big one, Kyndra, you got to say, we all should say it, because it didn't look. What
was it?
Brazil looked.
Oh yeah. But do you think the expectations are that high for them?
I think going in, you're correct, not from their roster, but I think there was the Ancelotti effect. Felt like a lot of people are like, he's going to figure out how to get these guys to like, and he still might. But I thought that was the least kind of aggressive, fun Brazil team I've seen in a long time at a World Cup.
Yeah, I think there's been some hesitation about that group compared to the Brazils of past. I will say we have another first, Tunisia firing their coach after the first World Cup game. But then we all get to see Hervé Renard, which is always fun.
Yeah.
It's a World Cup. We can't have a World Cup without him at the tournament. So
I feel like this was pre-planned.
We got to give some love to Morocco.
Yes, but they are a good team.
They're good. They've been good for the last 8 years at all levels of their.
Yes. Yep.
It's very true.
At Target, we're ready to cheer with the hometown fans and gear you up for an epic season. Whether watching from the stands or your living room, score big on game day with everything you need for the win. We're here to be your home field advantage at Target and Target.com. So then on the flip side, who's impressed you at this tournament so far? Obviously, the likes of Cape Verde getting a 0-0 draw against Spain will be up there. The U.S.'s 4-1 win will be up there. Kyndra, who's impressed you? I'll start with you on this one.
Oh, man.
Sweden rocking out to a 5-1 win, as you said, against Tunisia. Norway getting a 4-1 win over Iraq last night. That was fun game to watch.
For Erling Haaland because he finally got his moment. And so that, I think the big thing for me yesterday, and this may sound stupid and obvious, but like the stars are expected to shine and they all did.
Oh, yeah.
Because that doesn't always happen. And that may be like an easy out. But for, multiple stars to kind of step up on the biggest stage in the big moments, Messi getting his first World Cup hat trick. Not that any of us should be surprised, but sometimes it is
38 years old
when he does a first because he's almost done everything. And he plays in this league in Major League Soccer, which is also, I think, a huge bonus. But maybe Australia. I don't know how you guys kind of rated them. I was really impressed with them, and I think that'll be a great matchup for the U.S. To Manny's point earlier, we're like super pumped about that first win, but we can't get too high with the highs and low with the lows.
Let's do it. Let's get super high for like 3/4 of the show, and then we'll finish like on a downflow.
We don't want to give Australia fans.
We don't want to
say
they have impressed the most.
Who has?
Let's put our chest out a little bit. It was the USA game.
Okay. Yeah.
It really was.
I like it.
Well, did you have the most doubt about them, or what makes you think that?
I think it's more about the actual reality of how we played and how much we dominated against a team that only gave up 10 goals in qualifying, beat Brazil and Argentina in qualifying. Basically, like there's some really cool data metrics that we were so dominant. And one of my favorite ones is how many dribbles we had past players that broke lines. There hadn't been a team since 2014, any team in the world that had that many kind of successful dribbles past players in a World Cup game. So like, Chris Richards getting 83 out of 3 passing, World Cup record. Like, that to me is like why I'm putting my chest out, because it was real. It wasn't just me being a Homer fan about the USA. It was such a great performance. And I think as we go into the game and talk about it a little bit, I think you're spot on. Australia might be the second, and we play them Friday. So you're right. We do have to come down to earth about the reality of a really tough game on Friday. But I think we should definitely bask in the greatest U.S. soccer game at a World Cup that we've ever had.
That's I was going to say, because so much of the emphasis, even about this U.S. team going into this World Cup, was based on the fact that they don't have this grit, this like fight, like we're talking about these past men's World Cup teams, like they need to be. So like the fact that they did it with the grit and the fight, and the quality, which I don't think is always the expectation, even though we have these incredibly talented players. So like, and Chris Richards coming back from injury has hardly played. There was a question, everybody's watching how he's walking into the hotel. What's his gait look like? Does he look like he's going to be, and then to play the way they played, and you have old man Ream in the back, still, holding down the fort. So I would agree. I thought the way they played the quality, and you know what, guys, I just was remembering, I completely forgot about the first day of games already because we've been talking about day 2 and beyond. But South Africa was pretty disappointing for me, and sort of, I know there's not a huge expectation.
Nice. You're being very nice. Disappointing. Barely were able to pass the ball out of the back, and then they got an offensive third. They had no idea. They were one of the worst performances by far. I mean,
that was.
I thought it was pretty naive to go into the Azteca, the first game of the World Cup, and expect to be able to play out of the back right away in that game where those fans are just going to be up for it. Just, kind of realize the moment, just hoof the ball up the field, get it out of your own spot, out of your own half for 10 minutes of this match. Let the kind of juices kind of calm down a little bit. But no, they went right into the way they wanted to play. And it's that kind of bit them. I thought that was very naive to start off that way. And they really struggled to kind of get back into that match after that.
There were 0.007 expected goals. Minnesota United never had that. Literally, they couldn't get the ball in the box at all.
Not even in the Vancouver game?
Not even the Vancouver game. We actually had some moments of actually getting the ball in the box. And, as much as we blocked that game out, we had a better expected goals in South Africa.
But I will say, to Jonathan's point, it goes to the fact that even at the highest levels, there is a stubbornness. Well, sometimes we're you're going to play the way you want to play, whether it bites you in the butt or not. And there are some coaches and some, it's to Jonathan's point, you just got to sometimes accept the nature of the beast. You're on the opening game of the World Cup in Mexico against Mexico. You might want to cut your losses and just see what happens with somebody up front, And it's a bummer because I was excited. I really like Mbawazi for Chicago Fire.
I think they're going to get better.
Phenomenal. Right? Yeah. So that was a tough one. And Colombia plays today.
Yes. Oh yeah.
So we'll see how that goes with James.
And I think your grit comment is great. And I think they showed it. For me, that's the one that I don't assess until Friday. Because I think it's easy to run a marathon once. I think it's hard to recover and run a better marathon the next time around. And so for me, I think the big question about the grit of this team is this next game, because we were playing so well. The tactics were so spot on. The players were so selfless and hungry to run for each other that right now they're hopefully putting their chests out because they have, to me, played the best game in the World Cup. And that's when the real honest thing about the group comes, is the next game is, can they put that aside and decide to have that hunger to do it again? And do it even better, frankly. And so I'm waiting one more game for the grit answer, because I think that's still the one where it feels a little bit easy to do it one game. It feels hard to actually do it over 5, 6, 7, 8 games in a World Cup.
We're already into the U.S. men's national team portion of this show, so I'll keep on to that. I'll just say before getting back to that, the team that impressed me, I know it was a loss. Haiti impressed the hell out of me. I loved the way they went at Scotland. That was a really fun game. Not always an easy game, but that was a really fun game to watch from Haiti. They probably feel like they should have scored a couple of goals in that one. That was a really fun team to watch, and I'm excited to see them further on in the tournament. But
another great example too of a country really wanting to show well.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, a great example of a coach getting their tactics completely wrong. I mean, the fact that Scotland sat back and let Haiti play out of the back for 90 minutes, unlike Mexico, who said, hey, we're going to high press South Africa. That was, again, the next couple games for Scotland will be much more where they would like it to be, where they can now sit deep and counter. But really, to me, that was a really huge tactical mistake by Scotland.
Do you think for some of those countries like that, though, Jonathan, that when they do that, it's their first time, you know what I mean? Scotland, there's a nervousness about it and they feel better. I mean, I don't know, when you have tactical adjustments or changes like that, where you're allowing a team to kind of play out of the back, you're wanting to not put yourself in a position where you're going to be countered, or why do you think they make
that's coaches? That's coaching.
Yeah.
That's coaches deciding to set up in the mid to low block. And I think in this region, we'd be like, that you don't have to do that against Haiti. In fact, that's probably the worst thing you could decide to do against Haiti. So I think for every, I think that is poor coaching to decide to, set up like you do against a lot of your European teams that you play against. I mean, that to me allowed Haiti to get touches, get into the game, feel like they're creative players, get on the ball and move it. So
and I'll just say this as a Manchester United fan, how many times we need to see coaches set up Scott McTominay as a defensive mid to know that he's better as an attacking mid than a defensive mid. Yeah. He's done this at Napoli, or where is it, Napoli now that he's at? He's done that. He's played as an attacking mid there and he's excelled. Like, just stop playing as a defensive mid and your team will play a lot better, especially in the attacking end of the field. Scotland will be happy they got the 1-0 win, but the way they played on that game just wasn't confidence building going forward into the rest of the tournament. And so we'll see how Scotland can do. But let's go back.
We need the Tartan Army to make a run just for the tournament.
Just for the vibes alone.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, let's jump into this U.S. men's national team game, jump back into it since we already started that conversation. Most dominant U.S. men's national team win since, Kyndra?
Ever.
In the World Cup.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, also, like, again, are we talking like the actual goals? Are we talking, I mean, the overall performance? I mean, the metrics. And not to knock any previous men's national team, especially in a World Cup, the quality of the competition and the, not just in the team they were playing, I know it was Paraguay, but I'm saying like what they're facing now, I feel like is higher than maybe what we've seen in the past. And I'm not phrasing that right, but it's like when I go back and watch college players now, I'm like, okay, I'm not sure how I would do against some of these other Division One. Like, I don't know why. It just, and maybe I'm completely off on that, but I just thought they dominated in every aspect, and the expectations and the visibility of it all, the pressure. I don't know if it's the same. So when they excelled in those areas, I don't know. I would say it's probably the most dominant win I've ever seen from a men's national team in a World Cup. That's how I felt watching.
I would say in a World Cup, I mean, outside, obviously it's very, very recent Pochettino era, the 5-1 Uruguay win was just a friendly. So I don't think you count that with the kind of pressure and thing. I think the only other thing I could think of is probably the first half in 2002, USA versus Portugal, when we just went out and punched them in the face and punched them for 45 minutes. The next 45 minutes was just barely hanging on and just like onslaught. So we didn't play a complete 90 minutes of just complete dominance like this. I don't think there is a game I've ever seen against a high quality opponent in being this dominant, like Kyndra said.
Sorry. When you look at this game, obviously the tactics have been a big talking point from Pochettino and how he set up this team. What's the thing that stands out to you the most? I know there's a lot of different tactical nuances in this match from the U.S. To talk about. So Manny, I'll start with you. What's the thing that stands out to you the most and how Pochettino set up this team and how they played on the evening?
Yeah, I mean, my first thing is on this show, talking to United fans, is it's the exact same system that we've been playing this year, which I love. I love that, it's a similar system that maybe our fans can kind of see. Now, the difference is Pochettino is asking his wingbacks to fly forward and press high. And that's really fun because he's using this system to now get Balogun along with Dest and Robinson pressing almost up to the top and then letting our four midfielders, which would be Pulisic, McKennie, Tillman, and Adams, battle in that midfield to win it. And then we've got two very athletic center backs in Freeman and Richards. And then you got Ream, who's outstanding at actually playing out of the back and breaking lines and really giving us some quality going forward. And where I love is that this game was a little bit easier because you allowed Adams to just play in front of those front three. And then it was essentially Tillman, McKennie, and Pulisic, their best version of themselves, which is Pulisic going off and being in number 10 position and being very vertical. And then it's going McKennie being the number 10 in terms of his moxie and just finding those gaps and spots to battle and move the ball. And then Tillman's really our passing number 10. So you almost had three number 10s out there just floating and rotating. I don't know if we go to a higher level team that we can get away with not having another kind of honest number 6 next to Adams when the game opens up. Paraguay is kind of a defensive team. So that might be a little bit of an interesting shift where we might have to put a Berhalter in and lessen maybe some of our offensive kind of movement. But in that game particularly, we almost had three number 10s that were all kind of different, and all provided some great offensive flair.
Kyndra?
Well, and I think it'll be dependent a little bit too on if Pulisic is healthy and able to go. I mean, there's some question marks still about that. I know he's been sort of training on the side, but he was phenomenal in that game. And I give him a lot of credit. And I know that sounds maybe silly because these guys, this is sort of what they are paid to do and but there's still a lot of pressure. I don't know what that feels like to have that kind of pressure on my shoulders where everybody is, the expectations are high. And he hadn't scored any goals for club. He hadn't scored for country. But he came out and it looked like it didn't even faze him. And I thought he was phenomenal in doing exactly what we all know he's capable of, with taking people on and keeping them off balance. I mean, the defenders on that right side of Paraguay had like zero answers. There was so much coming at them, and the way he would float inside. And then to Manny's point with the outside backs. But I think some names that people may not even know are like Malik Tillman, and he was phenomenal in this game, because everybody always talks about Tyler Adams, that he's, McKinney. We know Malik Tillman, but like people that are tuning in, it's like, I thought he maybe didn't, he's kind of going to go unnoticed, which is okay. Like, we can look at it tactically and technically and say, okay, what did he do that allowed everybody else to do what they needed to do? And I thought he was kind of that piece, was Tillman. I think Jedi Robinson is so good, and his quality, I mean, set aside the goal that he scored in that last friendly, but he's got it in him. And then Des, just the eagerness to get forward and be aggressive and take players on. And also, I think that players can do that when they know and trust the players that are behind them. That they understand their center backs, they understand who's sitting in the middle. I do think Australia, to Manny's point, is going to be a different beast, and that maybe Berhalter coming in at the end of that game is super important, because then he's had his moment, his minutes in a World Cup game, in that game, late in the game, that now if he were to have to start as more as that true 6, or an 8, however they decide to play, like, then he's already been there and in that environment against, and now he would do it against an Australia team, and it just gives you a different feel. So it's a true team performance. Like, I felt like everybody was playing for each other. And I know it's an own goal. People are like, I'm like, it doesn't matter. You created that. Mm-hmm. You put the defense in that position. You don't get that opportunity if you don't force the defense into those precarious situations where they're trying to defend and they can't. So all the goals were scored in great ways, created. Balogun was awesome. So yeah, maybe they finally found their number 9, which was a big question mark. And then the goalkeeping and the defense did their thing. So we'll see how they could do against Australia. But there was not a negative in my mind, even the way they came on with the subs. I could not think of something that I would have been like, well, that didn't work, I would do something different. I thought that it was a unique whole game, whole team performance.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. That was one of the most cohesive performances we've seen out of this team in a very long time. And I'll say, you mentioned that opening own goal. Manny, we talked about this on Friday with Fernando Adi at the soccer celebration, how important it was to get an early goal, how important it was to play well in the first 10 minutes. And they did just that. They pushed Paraguay back, and they got that. They forced an own goal, and that really obviously settled the team down and allowed them to play with confidence going forward.
Yeah, I mean, the mentality and organization and tactical setup, the mental setup, we just got to give a ton of credit for this first game to Pochettino. Again, I told Kyndra on this show we're gonna give all these praises for as much as we can because they're real. But then we're gonna have to flip eventually to kind of think about how we're gonna have to go about Australia. And really, that's Pochettino. Pochettino, unbelievable. I mean, a 10 out of 10. I think he was the best out of anything, because for the last year he's been trying to build this culture. And listen, Kyndra just said it. Christian Pulisic is the best player on this team. Christian Pulisic is not our captain. Christian Pulisic is not the guy that we want to save us by getting touches all over the field and finding the ball over the field. It is clear that we want him to get in the offensive third. We want him to be vertical. We want him to go at people, get by people. We want him to combine with McKennie and Tillman now with his speed, with his verticality. That has not been the case for the last 5 or 6 years of Christian Pulisic on the national team. That is all Pochettino over the last year, trying to get all of these guys to embrace their roles, embrace their strengths and weaknesses, and then try to put them in the system that works. And it hasn't been perfect for Pochettino. He's been trying to do this back four for 8 or 9 months. And I think that's his system of choice. And I think he's come down to like, this is a better system for these guys. And the nice thing is he can always evolve that a little bit as the adversity of the tournament goes on. But ultimately, I give him the biggest credit because he had these guys ready to play and he put them in positions that I think allowed them to do that. And it started with Reem being captain over Christian Pulisic. And that's a lot of management. That's a lot of making sure Christian is still believes that he's valued, that he still is probably our best player on the roster. But that doesn't mean he's the best leader in terms of the different areas of the field that we need him to be in. In the past, I think we've gotten wrong for the U.S. national team.
Did you guys see the Tom Rinaldi piece about Miracle, about Pochettino, that there was like a soccer donor?
Oh, yeah.
But I was like, and I don't know when it flipped, because to your point about Pulisic, I think every time he's come back with a national team, he tries to do too much. He takes a lot of kicks. He gets knocked. He stays on the ground a little too long. You know what I mean? Like he was throwing up as like I don't know what it was.
I know when it started. It started last year when he didn't come into camp, and then Pochettino's like, I might not call you in for a while. It started when he said nobody is bigger than the team. Like it started a year ago, and they had a year.
But they still have to find their way to that. Correct. Just because somebody says it doesn't, you know what I mean? And like maybe that he meant it. He doesn't rule the world.
That's why he didn't call him into a camp. Like,
right.
I think he meant it when he said, okay, you're not going to come in now. I'm not going to call you in the next camp. Like they had been building this relationship for 8, 9, 10 months now. And that's why I said, you got to give credit to Pochettino because it was honest. It's like, Christian, nobody's bigger than the club, Well,
and that's what I loved, the clip from Miracle when he's like, it's Craig, the assistant, is like, you're missing like half the best guys out there. And he's like, it's not about, I'm not trying to get the best guys. I'm trying to get the right guys.
Right.
And like, that speaks to your point. And now Pulisic finally trusts his teammates to be able to give up that part of it where he can give the ball away, give it up and get it back and trust his teammates to perform this game against Paraguay and the last friendly, all the things are like building to this moment. And it's only one game.
Yeah, exactly.
But I feel like, but they also did really well when he came off at half. I know that it took him a little, but like that, there's a question mark there. And maybe he also sees, these guys can get the job done without me on the field. And they feel like we can get the job done without him on the field. This isn't a one-man show. So I think it was like a positive in all sorts of facets because Pulisic wouldn't have come out of the game if he hadn't taken a knock. He would have come out at that moment. So I think it was a great moment all around. And we'll see against Australia. But
again, before we go to that, though, I think Pochettino was, to me, the number one star. Because if you look at the last year, the ups and downs, and there was a lot of downs. I mean, there was some really bad games, and there were some great games. And again, I think he did a great job, and I really hope people understand Christian Pulisic is the best player on this team. But that doesn't mean that we need him to be the focal point of the team. We don't need him to be the leader in every aspect of the game. So like I said, that was huge. I thought McKennie was outstanding too. I mean, and really for me, Kyndra, you mentioned Balogun. I thought Balogun was great. I still think our strength is 3 forwards. Again, if Balogun looks a little bit sluggish this game, I think we've got 2 other forwards that can still do the same role and provide it differently. So I look at, we have 3 very high level, deep number 9s. We don't have an Erling Haaland. Let's be honest. But I think we got 3 in this.
Not many people do.
No, exactly. and so if we don't, I want those guys to work their butts off to really do the right things and the little things that then leads to him getting the space to get the goals he had. So, and it was a great performance by Balogun. Unbelievable.
As proud partners of Minnesota United FC, we're excited to share that the National Loon Center is opening in 2027. Located in the heart of Loon Country, the center will celebrate Minnesota's iconic state bird through immersive exhibits and lakeside experiences. Learn more and follow our journey at nationalloonscenter.org. Let me ask you this. For the, I guess, less tactical, astute listeners in the audience, Manny, can you break down what the Pentagon is and how, because that's been a big talking point about this team and how Pochettino set up this team and that kind of Pentagon shape of how he used that midfield in the attack. Can you explain what that is and kind of how that dictated how the U.S. played in the attack going forward against Paraguay?
Yeah. If you want to geek out and look at, there's some great models where you can really look at, the compactness of a team. And that's always so important. It really is. Systems are important. Don't get me wrong. They create overloads. They create models where you can get 2v1s to get the ball forward or move the ball from one space to other space in the field to now really get space to attack. But ultimately, that shape comes from how compact are you? How are you able to move 10 guys, not really 11, you don't really count the goalie, in and around the field where it's almost sometimes like from front to back, like 15 to 20 yards total. And really that back three to me is really special because it's kind of got this idea of like, you've got an older guy in Ream who probably couldn't do the same in a back four, we'd be in trouble, but he's really good like that. And then you have two athletic guys. So you have one guy's a really good passer. You have two other guys who are good at keeping the ball, but they're more really to help Ream if we get caught a little bit. And then you have two wide wing backs. Instead of playing in a back five, they're up a little higher. And so now you're getting this kind of cone shape. You got Adams that really is the one that's just destroying everything. That's his role, is to be in front of those guys, making sure that without any transition moments, they'll die up higher up the field, and they won't allow us to get stretched to have the counterattacks. And then ultimately, I think Tillman was kind of supposed to be next to Adam, but in this game, because Paraguay sat back so much, Tillman, McKennie, and Pulisic really had within that shape, had the ability to kind of it's almost like an amoeba that's just floating around the field as a group of 10. And it's super cool to watch because that really takes a lot of selfless work, selfless discipline. I mentioned to you guys that it's going to be so important as this tournament goes on that people like Gio Reyna, that people like Berhalter, Roldan will get some minutes because he understands that idea of that shape so well, that we don't lose that group mentality. Again, I love the individual flair. I love when we want to express those individually, but if it's not within the collective of the group, this team will be in trouble as we get to higher level teams. We need to evolve what we played against Paraguay and almost be better every game going forward because the competition will get better no matter what. The opponents at the highest level in the world will hurt you if you don't play as a unit like that.
Yeah, I love it. I'm looking forward to seeing how this team performs on Friday against Australia. And one of my big questions, Kyndra, is the defense against Australia and how you set up the defensive backline against Australia. Because as we saw in their first game of the tournament, a 2-0 win over Turkey, their front line, their front forwards, extremely quick. They loved getting the ball up the field and just having those guys run into space. And you mentioned, Manny, Tim Ream, not probably best suited for that. Kyndra, when you look at how this backline performed last Friday and what their tasks are this Friday, how do you think that sets up? How do you think they set up? What do they change against Australia on Friday?
Well, first off, nobody told me we were going to have science and math. I had to figure out how many sides are on a pentagon and remember what an amoeba is. Those are my two worst subjects I ever had in school and why I got out of school as fast as possible. But I actually think the back will stay relatively the same. It goes back to the midfield, which Manny had kind of mentioned, and how they deal with.
You mentioned Pulisic. That's the one that is like the most important, because if he can't go, that really then starts to open up. How do we approach this now?
How do we change the way it's going to look if Pulisic can't come in or can't go? And the sub for that was made technically for him was Berhalter. Yeah. So then when you're looking at the other players that came on the pitch and Reyna, I'm trying to remember who else came on.
Reyna came in late. Yeah.
Who did? Reyna came in late, yeah. But then there was Weah came in as well. I was trying to remember who else came in from an attacking perspective. So I think when you look at the back line for the U.S., I don't think it changes. I think it just changes on how you adjust the midfield and the shape. If Pulisic can't go and you have another different attacking threat, then how does Berhalter maybe sit in that 6 or that 8 and, sit in front of that back line? How does he partner up with a Tyler Adams? But then how do you utilize McKennie? Because I don't think you can take him off the field. No. So I guess I don't know exactly what his thought process is to deal with everybody, because when you look at, you don't want to lose anything from an attacking perspective. I think the best defense is how you're going to stay on the front foot and utilize the wing backs, the fullbacks, and utilize a player like Dest is a not a Tillman, is who's the other guy I was just saying? Oh, Weah. Is Weah like for like and how he can attack for like a Pulisic, but then who do you take out of the middle to have that defensive mindset?
Yeah, I think Kyndra Ware is only right now, in Pochettino's mind, he is a right wing back or in a back four, a right back. I mean, I think in Ware's trajectory has been a weird year where he's gone from kind of like a right forward. Even on his club team, he's been playing right back. So I think he is the sub for Dest late when Dest gets tired. I don't think he'll put Way anywhere else on the field. I think it really comes down to if Berhalter comes in for Pulisic, we become just a little bit more defensive. You mentioned it. Berhalter will be kind of like next to Adams, more of an 8, but he's not going to be like Pulisic, McKennie, and Tillman, that he's going to be flying and loading the line and breaking lines. So ultimately, that's why the World Cup is not just one game. If Pulisic is out, it is next man up, but there is no replacement for Pulisic. And that's a compliment to him and what he does. But the reality is it probably would be Berhalter in there. And now you're pushing Tillman and McKennie higher to kind of be our dual number 10s. And Berhalter's the 8, excuse me, with Tyler Adams being the 6. So
does that mean then you're just fully relying on Jedi Robinson to be the player in that wide space? I mean, Berhalter can drift, but he's not going to obviously do what Pulisic does. But I don't know. I think you want him to stay more central.
Yeah.
And then you're relying on McKennie to kind of do some of that, which I've been super impressed with what he's been doing as this like sort of number 10 higher up the field. I think that's maybe not a role that everybody envisioned him in based on his previous men's national team performances. He always stayed a little more central or a little deeper.
Yeah, I think you probably get a little more central battle in the midfield. If you win the midfield, now you've got Dest and Robinson getting high and hungry to get in the box, and both sides. If Robinson's crossing the ball, it's Dest who, Dest to me is an awesome example of like, it's all or nothing because he loves going forward. I think he's an awesome offensive talent and like he believes, and he probably is one of the best wing backs in the world because he's so good at that. It does leave us a little exposed defensively, which brings up to me the name that we haven't brought up, which I think is probably one of the stories of the U.S. national team, the son of an NFL player who was essentially just playing youth soccer a couple years ago. Freeman has been unbelievable. I mean, what a talent. Like for our Minnesota United fans, I don't think we've seen an athletic defender like this since Tony Sana on the national team. Again, Tony was actually more of solving things by passing, but his athleticism defensively reminds me of it. Freeman really, when he gets the ball, he loves to break lines out of the back by dribbling. And it's very effective just in a similar way that Tony's passing was, because both are two of the more athletic players I've seen in the national team over the last 20, 30 years. And he has just been unbelievable. It's been, to me, it's opened up so much for us to move the ball forward now because you've got Richards, who's just a steady passer, not a great passer, but 83 out of 83, he'll keep the ball moving. Ream is outstanding at breaking lines wide or breaking through the middle. And Freeman wants to dribble with it to break lines. So I think we're really hard to handle for teams defensively because we have 3 players that solve things a little bit differently in terms of how they want to pass out of the back. And that's where things have evolved so different. Like 20, 30 years ago, there was barely any players that could pass as a defensive player. Now you see all these countries, these teams, these guys. So it reminds me of the NBA where everybody can dribble, pass, shoot. In soccer, it's a very similar thing where all these guys are so good with the ball now on moving it. And I think we've got spot on 3 guys in different ways that to me are looking close to as good as any 3 in the world right now, which is amazing.
Well, and to that point, Antonio Freeman, I mean, 2025, he played 29 games with Orlando City. In 2024, he played 2. And the year before that, it was 1. Like he literally just bust onto the MLS scene last year, and then it was just like this meteoric rise with his determination and sort of his quality aside from his athleticism. But quick question on that though, because the defense, right, has been sort of this question mark for the United States.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of different, areas that people have looked at. And even when you go back to, let's say, the last friendly against Germany, looked very different than how we played against Paraguay. So when you look at the Germany game, and I know Richards wasn't in there, but why do you, like, when you go against a higher quality opponent like that, which is sort of what they're going to see? Australia isn't Germany. They don't play the same way. They don't have, like, I felt like there were some moments in that Germany game where you're like, that the defense was still a little bit of a question mark in some of the quality that was being thrown at them. So you feel like with the people that we have in the back now and the three different styles of play, that how they can solve pressure and how it's more defensively for me, not like how do we build out? It's like, how do we cover?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I as much as I love Miles Robinson, I still think he'll have a play because I think he athletically can guard any offensive player in the world. He has been struggling to move that ball still. That's his next area. And I really hope if he gets in and we need him in this World Cup, he gets excited about moving that ball well and sharply. But I think the difference is, to me, is you have three guys that, are more complete players right now than Miles Robinson, because Miles is great at solving things athletically. He still has lacked a little bit of just that sharpness of moving the ball and a little bit of sharpness of the box defending, because he wants to solve it athletically. Like that first goal between him and Ream and Freeze against Germany was chunky. And we cannot give up set piece goals in this tournament. We just have to use our athleticism to make sure. And I think that hurt us hard. So, but it wasn't too bad the rest of the game, I think. But Richards is, he's an up and coming Premier League star. So we really do look better when he's in the game.
So when you look at this game coming up Friday at 2,
right, we're shifting right now. I
started to shift. Yeah.
Okay. Right.
What are the?
Yeah, it's real.
Yeah, it's real. Manny, you'll be there. You'll be there at the game.
I'm going to be there. I'm super excited. But can we do this 2 games in a row? That's the question.
Yeah. That's a very difficult question, because Australia, they played well in their first game. What are the things that you're looking for from the U.S. going up against Australia? What are the things that they need to do differently when setting up against this new team in Australia that they saw just last year, a 2-1 win, a very physical game, if I'm remembering correctly? That was a back and forth. It was a comeback win for the U.S. on the night. I think that was in Colorado, but it was a very physical game, if I'm remembering correctly. So what are you looking for from the U.S. on Friday? Manny.
You want to start? Because I'm too nervous.
You'll be there. Yeah. So Kyndra, I'll start with you here.
Well, I think first and foremost, all the tactical things we just talked about, I think that's the expectation. And maybe you can hang your hat a little bit on the fact that Australia might be riding a little bit high as well right now. Maybe they're a little overconfident, and you still have the home crowd. I mean, I think we saw it in LA. It's going to be no different in Seattle. The stadium, whatever they're calling it for the World Cup, looked phenomenal for the games that have already been there. It's going to be a home crowd. It's going to be a beautiful day. I know it's an afternoon game, which some people have been a little bit down on in general. And when it's an open air, the vibe, the energy, maybe, I don't know what the temperature, it's not going to be hot, I don't think. No. But the home crowd is going to be the thing, I think, that carries this team through. And it's not that simple. It's just that when you are hosting a World Cup and you are on United States soil and you're playing in Seattle in front of 70,000 people or whatever they have the capacity for, tactically, we just discussed what they need to do. I think it's going to be about the home field advantage. And I think that if the U.S. can stay within themselves and just have enough confidence from that first game to carry it into the second, but not overconfident where they forget what got them that win against Paraguay, and Australia maybe a little overconfident from their result, and they're going to walk into a building that is just roaring with U.S. fans and U.S. jerseys. So that's kind of my thought. I think it's going to be a great game. I'm hoping, like, if I had to actually give a score prediction, I hope for, maybe like a 2-1 win, and maybe it ends up being like a 2-2 draw. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a draw, just because of the quality of both teams and knowing that the third place group, advances to the next round. And we talked about the meaningful nature of draws in this new expanded World Cup. That's kind of my thought.
Manny, Australia, when I'm looking back at the stats, only had 28% of the possession in their first game, yet they still won 2-0 just because of the how lethal their attack was, and getting that counterattack and getting that going forward as quick as they did. It really caused Turkey a lot of problems. Is that something that you expect the U.S. to have? Is that much possession? And if so, what's the importance of the defensive play, considering how good Australia looked on the counter?
Yeah, I mean, Kyndra talked about how, like, will this defense hold up as this tournament goes on? And are we, kind of disciplined enough to attack in a way that we either finish plays off or we can't allow transition moments back the other way, or when we do, we're hungry to hunt the ball down and stop the transition. And, that's where we'll see this team evolve. Again, I think we have a little bit more of a disciplined defensive team than Paraguay in terms of just how they played that first game. I got us 2-0 though. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm going to keep the wave going. I know there's a lot of our historical people say we don't play 2 games in a row well like this, so we're going to come back to earth. I'm going to keep the ride going. That would this win give us basically the group as well if we won, I think. So, especially if we win 2-0. So I'm going to go 2-0. I'm going to keep riding the high and believe that this team is hungry to get through the group and win it.
I will point out, Manny, you were just 1 goal off in your prediction from last Friday. You said 3-1. Yeah. Ended up going 4-1 with an incredible Gio Reyna goal, which outside of the foot, we didn't even get to talk about that, but that was one of the more stunning goals that I've seen from the U.S. outside of obviously the Anthony Robinson goal in Germany. I mean, there's been a couple good goals over the past couple weeks for the U.S. Kyndra, you said 2-2 or 2-1?
I said my initial prediction is 2-1 U.S. I'm going to go 2-1.
I like it. I think I'm with Manny here. 2-0. That feels like a good result. Although
another clean sheet.
They're certainly.
I guess Paraguay wasn't a clean sheet, but you're hanging your hat on a clean sheet. Yeah. I like it.
Australia are certainly motivated. They didn't like who was it? Mike Grella's comments when the draw happened, where he called Australia a layup, and that fired off everywhere across Australian media, and that's now been their bulletin board material for the game. So they're clearly motivated and excited to show that they're more than just a layup. And I mean, it was a 2-1 win for the U.S. They had to come back from giving up.
I think hopefully our guys learn those first 25 minutes of how tough and just gritty and just organized they are. They've had a great run of a couple of years now of playing really good soccer consistently. It's a lot of good levels of talent. So.
And Harrington, the young player from Colorado, making his way into that roster. I mean, he's been fun to watch. There's some more MLS talent on that roster as well.
Yeah, looking forward to this one. Friday at 2, you can join us at the soccer celebration down on PV Plaza, down in Minneapolis, to watch that game live. Afterwards, not beforehand, afterwards we'll have a live show with myself and a couple of Loons guests. I won't give away who they are, unless it's already been announced on social media and I haven't seen it, but we'll have
it is on the website, because I did look at MNUFC.com on the website, but I won't say it. People have to go find it or show up.
Go give the website some clicks if you want to know who will be joining me on stage after the U.S. takes on Australia. Looking forward to that. Appreciate you guys stopping by. This was fun. Manny, have fun in Seattle, and hopefully we get a U.S. win out of it.
I like it. Let's go USA. Thank you, Kyndra. Love the guest appearance today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And well, hopefully the next time you guys are talking about the USA, it's another W.
Let's look forward to that. Loons fans, thanks for popping in. Thanks for listening in. Thanks to the production staff, Grace Dearson, Kyle Hayward, Evan Entler, for putting this on every week. And we'll talk to you next week.